Hi, here I am. Welcome to our first Monday Un-Madness of March. It is the month of March Madness. It's the month that comes in like a lion, out like a lamb, St. Patrick's Day, all the things. So welcome, welcome. And today we'll be talking about this topic that I call naming. It's when people have called it various things, but it has a lot of benefits and is really, really helpful to um, to specifically to work on burnout, but also to start to shift perspective. So let's dive right into it. If this is your first Monday of Madness with me, then I am Marissa Krupa. And I am a career transition coach. I specifically help mid-career women who maybe have stayed in their role too long or who have been pushed out of their role and are in that transition or pivot period with their career. Unlike a lot of other coaches, I integrate mindfulness and somatic practices into my programs. And there's a lot of very real world benefits to that, which we will explore when you watch the session today. We'll be using the mindfulness-based stress reduction technique from John Kabat-Zinn in the 1970s. This technique uses movement, writing, discussion, and meditation to help reduce stress in order to build new skills and shift mindset. So make sure you've got a journal or scratch paper or whatever and a pen handy so that we can get into the writing part of the program. All right, well, let's explore first what is naming. So I talked a little bit about it on my post. It's truly naming what you are experiencing in real time. That's really all it is. So it's a simple concept, and also it's not very easy all the time, right? And there's a couple points here I want to make. So naming requires being present. It requires self-awareness. And so if you're scattered, if your nervous system is kind of in a shambles, all these kinds of things, it's very difficult to use this skill. And yet, even trying it a little bit starts to help to break through the burnout. We'll talk about that more in a minute. I also added the caveat of naming things appropriately in the workplace. So we all know as women in the workplace that we are scrutinized at a higher level than our male colleagues. And so it's really critical to be aware, again, of what we are saying, as well as the tone of how we're saying it. A while ago, I came across a very relevant article about this that discussed self-aware leadership. And the person who wrote the article was saying, being self-aware doesn't mean just allowing everything that pops into your mind to just come out your mouth, like in a stream of consciousness. And I was like, that's a great point. I can imagine possibly men might get away with that a little more often than women. But yeah, that's really not self-aware leadership. So actually, if you do want to have me explore my definition of self-aware leadership, how I feel it can be useful, because it can be very useful in the workplace, I would love to do that topic. So if that's something you're interested in, you can pop it into the chat on this video, or you can direct message me or whatever. And I'd be happy to pull a program together on that. All right, let's carry on. So how is naming useful? Well, there's a lot of different ways this is useful. The first one is really that breaking through burnout, because naming requires being present. It also requires that we get out of our own heads. And in the research I've done about burnout, a big portion of burnout is really coming from our own mindset. And so by being present, we become aware of what is really happening in our workplace, and it helps us to shift our perspective away from potentially, being overly negative, right? And what that does is it also opens up choice. And once we can get to a place of choice, now the burnout has no place to live anymore, because burnout is all about this sensation or this feeling that we have no more choice. Okay. So this is a fundamental thing that I do with women clients who work with me when they are in this pivot or transition moment in their careers. When once they are able to see choices, then their next career step actually becomes really clear pretty fast. And it feels good to them to take this new step. And so the fear about taking this new step actually just melts away. It's really a phenomenal thing to experience. In addition to breaking through burnout, naming is a fantastic way to subtly yet effectively shape how people treat you. And I've talked about this a lot in my posts on LinkedIn. When you care for yourself, when you establish healthy boundaries and you let people know you will adhere to them, and they start to sense, oh, wait a minute, she's not going to let me push her around, or she's not going to be this workhorse that always takes on more and more projects just because I ask her to. Oh, maybe I won't ask her to take on more stuff anymore. Or maybe I'll think about distributing the work to some of the other people on the team a little bit better. Suddenly now, people's behaviors around you and how they treat you begin to change. Additionally, this skill also helps to put people on notice, again, in a subtle and hopefully compassionate way, as to what kind of behaviors you will and won't accept. We'll get into some examples to explore this, but it's amazing how naming what you experience is a type of like outing someone without really outing them, if that makes any sense. So it's putting people on notice, but without like the shame and blame. Okay, and we're going to explore this in the next example. So the first thing we'll do is get into some movement. Let's get into our bodies. Let's get grounded. It's Monday. It's March already of 2026. Like, what in the heck is happening with the time? I don't even know. Like, if you blink, it's 10 years from now. Like, it's crazy. So let's get into some movement. This is all stuff that can be done from your chair. I'm just going to kind of move back a little bit here so you can see me better. So we can just do grandfather's code on our chair, and that's just simple, easy twisting from side to side, allowing your arms to be slack. Here, I'll put this off. We can so you can see me better. There we go. So just side to side. Opening up your spine. Beautiful. And then coming back to center. And now what we're going to do, I keep forgetting to look up the official name of this Kriya. I just call it Jazz Hands Kriya. I know. And it's fun because it's silly, right? So anyway, your hands are going to be like so, and you'll be extending them out above your head, taking a breath in. And then as you bring your arms in, your elbows into your sides, you take your hands into a fist and you let out your breath with a ch. Okay, so we'll just do a few more slower so you can get the hang of it. Okay, let's go a little bit faster now. Let's up the speed. Go faster even more if you can. Keep going. Don't give up. Last one. Whew. Okay, put your hands on your thighs if that feels comfortable to you. Palms up or palms down. Just pause and breathe. It's always a good one. It gets my heart going. And I just feel like whatever tension is in my body is just gone after we do the Jazz Hands Kriya. Alrighty, and then the last one is we're just going to do some simple side stretches. So inhaling, taking your arms up over your head, take your right hand, grab it onto your left wrist, and then as you exhale, bend to the side. Try to keep your hips even with the floor. Inhale up, keep your hands where they are. Exhale, bend to the side. Inhale up, last one on this side. Exhale, bend to the side. Inhale, back up. Exhale, release your arms all the way. Pause for a moment till we do the next side. Breathe. Notice what you're experiencing. And now inhale the arms up overhead. This time we'll take the left hand and grab it onto the right wrist. Inhale, exhale to the side. Back on up, inhale. Exhale to the left side. Inhaling, last one. Exhale. Inhale up. Exhale, release your arms. All right, I feel better already. So let's get this slide deck up again. And we'll go from here. Okay, so now grab your journal or your diary, what have you, because we're going to do some writing. This first one here is an example. So I'm going to share the example with you, and then I'd like you to write your own. And then we're going to practice 2 more times with 2 other scenarios. All right, so this was the example I put into my LinkedIn post. You're at work, someone walks into your office asking for 5 minutes. 15 minutes later, they are still speaking about situation that your role is really only partially responsible for, and you are not the decision maker. In addition, you have a deadline for a project component that's due tomorrow morning, and you're trying to refine it and finish it up. So now here are 2 different ways to name. I'm going to offer you 2 different kind of scripts that I wrote up. And then I want you to think about which one you liked and why, and then write your own. So here's the first one. Hey, so-and-so, I need to stop you for a moment. You're taking up way more than 5 minutes, and this problem is not something I can solve right now. I'm on deadline, and I can't tackle this. Besides, it's really so-and-so's issue because they are the decision maker. I can meet with you and her later in the week about this, but I can't continue to discuss it right now. I'm on deadline, and I appreciate you understanding this. So that's the first example. Okay, here's example number 2. Hey, so-and-so, I need to hit the pause button for a moment. I'd really like to help you more, but actually it's been about 15 minutes since you walked in, and unfortunately I'm on deadline for tomorrow, so I can't continue this discussion right now. I'm also curious about why you haven't reached out to so-and-so yet, because they are truly the decision maker on this. I'd like to discuss that piece with you at another time. It seems you have a few days before this turns into a total crisis. I'll have time tomorrow afternoon once this project component is submitted. Let's meet then, and then I'll be able to dive deeper with you and strategize how to approach so-and-so. And then you get out your phone for your calendar. Now think about if you were on the receiving end of either of those statements, which one would you want to hear? Which one felt better for you? Okay. So I'd like to give you about 30 seconds, because remember, we talked about this in the last Monday Un-Madness 2 weeks ago about Maya Angelou's favorite quote, and I'm paraphrasing. People will always remember how you made them feel. Now I can imagine if you're under a deadline pressure, you might be feeling pretty crabby about someone coming in and taking your time. To avoid even this, if someone walked in and said, hey, can I grab 5 minutes of your time? You can just say, actually, no, I don't have 5 minutes right now. That would avoid even all of this, right? And also, we want to be seen as team players. We want to be seen as supportive to our colleagues. So that is a fine line. And I encourage you to explore both of these options. Anyhow, let's take about 30 seconds and have you write down your version of this. So I'm going to hit the timer and come up with your own words. What would you say? All right, that is time. So now you've got my two examples, you've got your example. Let's break this down a little bit and see kind of what made one or the other successful. So most people would probably pick the second statement that I made as the one that they would want to hear. Why? What made it different than the first one? The first one isn't bad. The first one isn't bad. There may be an edge to it, especially because there are certain keywords that were used in the first statement, like you. You've now taken up 15 minutes of time, right? So when we're communicating what is real for us, the crucial key part is to keep it into I statements. I'm experiencing this. I'm on deadline. I'm present to this, right? That takes a type of ownership. And what it does is it helps to prevent the other person's back from going up. Nobody likes to have their behavior thrown in their face, right? Like we talked about before, it's a type of outing somebody without making them feel bad about themselves, okay? By you claiming and naming what it is you are experiencing, that is like your personal truth. And it's very difficult to deny that. It's very difficult for other people to say, like, no, you're wrong. Because you're like, I'm just speaking my truth here. This is my experience. And so it's very, very powerful. All right. So that first one is totally fine. And also, as women in the workplace, because we have these double standards, that level of assertiveness might be considered witchy by others in the workplace. And so, unfortunately, for better or for worse, that is the reality. And so we need to be very mindful and aware. So I have a good friend of mine, when she was working corporate, we used to call it like buttering people up. And so she and I used to joke about having like a bucket of butter and like one of those long poles with the rollers, like the painters use. And we would just dip the roller and we'd be like buttering somebody up and down from head to toe, right? And that's sometimes what you have to do as a woman in the workforce in order to express yourself and yet not rub people the wrong way. So that is a reality, and that's fine. And so we work with that. It's also really critical to have your tone. So the second statement left more room for a lighthearted tone. And that really came across in using the word curious, right? So expressing curiosity is a great way to communicate something and yet not have there be so much emotional charge around it. It's like this word curious kind of neutralizes all the emotions. So I really encourage you to start using the word curious in how you are communicating in the workplace. Another way to do this is the word present to. So what I'm present to right now is blank. So for example, in this situation, you could even say to that person, what I'm present to right now is that this is really stressful to you, and yet you've got 2 weeks before this really becomes critical. I'm curious about why you're stressing about this now, right? So again, that's naming and being curious about why they're stressing about it. You can say, I'm curious about why this is such a huge concern now when there's 2 weeks before it becomes critical, something like that. Also, I'm experiencing right now. Then the let's is an invitation. And again, that's a really important aspect to tone in how we communicate. I don't know if you ever played as a child the game Yes Let's. It's where like one person's the leader and they say, let's walk on the sidewalk without stepping on any of the cracks. And then you're like, yes, let's. And then you all do it and you follow the leader, right? So that let's is an invitation. It's not saying we have to do this. It's not saying I want to do this, right? You're removing, even though you have a personal desire, this is very subtle. You have a personal desire. You can't talk to the person right now. You want to get them on your calendar to talk with them later. These are all your desires. That's totally cool. But how you're communicating those desires is we're doing this together, right? Huge, huge difference. And then finally, and I didn't model this, but it's a really strategic part of naming, is pause. Now, I did use the word pause in the second statement where I said, I want to hit the pause button. That's a really great phrase to use. I'd like to hit the pause button. Instead of saying like, I need to stop you, or I need to interrupt, or it's just a little bit gentler. It's a little bit gentler, a little bit more lighthearted. I'd like to hit the pause button for a moment. And also you can say, so let's say somebody came into your room, they've like dumped this problem on your lap, and you're like, holy heck, I don't even know what to say. My mind is already focused on this other thing. And you can tell that person, I just need to pause for a moment and take this in. That is such a legitimate strategy for you to pause and then actually take a breath, right? And then formulate your response. Maybe it's a question. Maybe it's saying, hey, I'm not able to deal with this. Let's get on the calendar, whatever. But that saying, I need to pause for a moment and take this in is totally legit. Take that time for yourself. This is now letting the person know, right? Again, this is subtly, but yet very effectively letting this person know that when they somewhat barge into your office and dump a crisis on you, that you're going to pause. You're not going to just take on that crisis. Because so much of what happens with our colleagues is energetically they're struggling with something, and so they want to dump it on somebody else. And this is your boundary coming up and saying, actually, I'm not going to receive this. I'm not in any position to receive it. And also, I will be in a position to receive it tomorrow afternoon. Let's talk then. Right? So all of these types of naming aspects of the skill are really about preventing burnout, or if you are in burnout, getting yourself out of it. So it's an incredibly important and valuable skill to have. Okay, so now that we've kind of processed that, let's go into our first practice. So I'm going to read this out loud, and then I'm going to give you 30 seconds to write out your script. Then I will share with you what I would have said. But again, it's important for you to find your own words in this. Okay, so this is a similar scenario to what we just did. You're about to get into your car in your workplace parking lot, and a colleague calls your name and approaches you. You're already 10 minutes late to get home and be with your family, your kids' soccer practice, etc. They begin to talk about a problem that is way too complex to fix in 5 minutes. And frankly, you are already mentally checked out. And also, it's really not an appropriate time to try to solve problems in the parking lot of your workplace, frankly. So let's do 30 seconds. Write down how you would name your experience in this moment, and then what you would say to the person. Go. Okay, we've got about 5 more seconds. Awesome. All right, so I encourage you to find a friend, not a workplace friend, because there's a lot of reasons why, like sharing with a workplace friend that you are working on building these skills could be a vulnerability for you, especially if you're in a very toxic workplace environment. So try to find a friend outside of work and then share what you read and just read the scenario to them and say, hey, this is you. I'm now communicating to you. If I said this, what would be your experience? What would you feel? What would you think? Right? So you run it by somebody and ask them for feedback. So this is the way I would phrase my naming skill to them. Hey, so-and-so, I need to stop you because I'm late to get home and my kid's soccer practice. I appreciate you approaching me about this. The problem sounds complex and I'd like to help you solve it, but I can't do it right now standing in the parking lot. I know I have about 20 minutes tomorrow afternoon. Let's set up a time on our calendars to truly give the situation the time it needs so we can solve it together. There you go. All right, scenario number 2. Practice number 2. This one's a little bit tougher. And also, it's if you are in mid-career, you have probably experienced meetings like this already, or often maybe. So it's really important to practice the skill of naming while you are in a meeting, so that when you get into a meeting, you have the skill and the confidence to try and use it. All right, you're in a meeting and someone presented a project update. You see a glaring issue and nobody is bringing it up. This issue directly affects you and your team and could set the project back. So what do you say? What do you not say? What do you do? What do you not do? Now, in a scenario like this, there are a lot of different options. Okay, so first of all, I'll do 30 seconds for you to try and sort it out. Okay, here we go. Okay. So you've got some choices here. Now, some people would say talk to the person who made the presentation one-on-one outside of the meeting. That is a very cool option. And you could still use the script you wrote with that person one-on-one. There is also some folks who might say, no, it's better to talk about this in the room, in the meeting, with the stakeholders present so that they are aware. Especially because if your manager or your supervisor or VP or whatever is in the room and they understand that you've been kind of caught off guard with this, then they hopefully will go to bat for you and make sure that the communication lines are better or improved. So this is what I would say if I were to speak to really either way, either in the meeting or outside of the meeting. Depending on the environment, if I didn't feel comfortable or safe speaking up in the meeting, then I would go to my supervisor and let them know, hey, we just had this meeting, so-and-so said this, and frankly, I was taken off guard. This is the first I've heard of it. I thought they were supposed to tell me about these kinds of things, and yet that communication hasn't been happening. What's the best path forward to reach out to them and make sure that we can communicate better? So I would ask for help if that feels appropriate, again, for your workplace environment. So a lot of different options here, but here's what I wrote. Thank you so much, so-and-so, for the presentation. I'm curious about something. I got present to this area of the project, which is what my team contributes to. I noticed that there were some delays in the previous iteration that could impact my team. In this moment, I'm feeling challenged because this is the first I've ever heard of this concern. I want to be sure we stay on track. What's the best way for our two teams to move forward so these project components don't conflict and we don't get off schedule? So that would be my version. And again, I would approach them individually or potentially in the meeting, depending on the environment, depending on whether I thought my supervisor had my back or anything like this. Now, I will tell you that you are highlighting a vulnerability, which is the fact that you didn't know about this until that moment when they gave the presentation. And some people might say, oh, well, that's making you look bad or this or that. And also, that's the reality of your experience. And so again, saying, I'm feeling challenged by this is really letting them know that, like, I don't appreciate only being notified by this in this moment. Like, why didn't you tell me before, right? But it's doing so in a way that's professional, it's subtle. Again, it's that calling out without really calling out. And so you're saying this is what's happening, but you're already moving to a solution. That's really the key to this practice scenario, is moving into that solution phase as soon as possible. So you're acknowledging what's happening, you're holding them accountable, and you're saying, despite all this, I really just want to come to a solution so that we don't have to do this again. Okay. All right, you guys are doing awesome. So let's move into our wrap up. So with all of these possibilities for practicing, I hope that you're getting the hang of this a little bit and being able to start to build some awareness on how can I just name what is actually happening right in this moment? And how can that be a tool to teach others how to treat me and to let people know what I will and won't accept in workplace behavior, right? One of the ways that I help myself to be present and to be in the moment, to be able to use this skill, is by sitting in stillness, or what some people call meditation. I try to do about 10 to 15 minutes a day. That's a lot for most people. I usually seriously recommend like 1 minute. So let's practice that now. We do this a lot on the Monday on Madness. So let's go into 1 minute of stillness. And I'll just guide you into focusing on your breath. That's a really easy way to start building awareness. All right, here we go. So I invite you to either close your eyes or soften your gaze in front of you. You're sitting, if you can, sit on the edge of your chair. Keep your spine erect. Palms can be face down or face up on your lap. And then just notice the qualities of your in-breath. Notice your lungs filling with air. Notice the air moving through your nostrils. Notice the qualities of your out-breath. Maybe the temperature of the air. No need to control or change anything. Just simply notice. Take each breath as it comes. And that is time. All right. So let's do our 1 to 10 scale. Did we do that at the beginning? Oh, I think I forgot. Oh, heck. Well, let's do it now. So if 1 is horrible and 10 is it's the best day of your life, pick a number that encapsulates this moment of now. So everything in your life, mind, body, spirit, circumstances at work, some circumstances outside of work, and pick a number. And my hope is that the number is like 7 or higher. That's my hope. Now that we've practiced this together. So thank you always for joining me. And what I'll do now is post into the chat some links for where you can find me, links to more resources so that you can learn more about me, find me, connect with me if you want to. And I would love to connect with you. So I hope that you have found this skill building session to be really useful. And I'm really curious about how this works out for you. So I would love to hear from you, if you've tried this, if you experimented, and what the results were about it. So drop me a note. Let me know how this is going for you. Thank you so much again for joining me, and we'll be meeting again. I haven't even flipped my calendar yet. We'll be meeting again on the 16th of March. So So enjoy the next couple of weeks, and I'll catch you then. Bye.